Well, hey, welcome back to the 99 for the show before the show. I'm your host, Patrick Marlette, and I've been told that there is a minor audio sync issue that has been occurring with these videos as of late. So I've been trying to troubleshoot that, and I realize it's rather difficult if it's just me monitoring. So let me know. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Did all of that seem to be on point when I spoke there? No idea why this audio sync issue is occurring now. Every time I solve one problem in my life, a new one occurs. I found that's just the irony of it. But super curious if there's an audio sync or delay issue for you guys, and if I can rectify that live. That would be amazing. That's why I need you all. You're my guinea pigs today. I really want to just make sure we get this square for any time my face is on the screen. Fortunately, this weekend, don't have to see my face. So, definitely tune in for the Brew Wars live with Casually Competitive. I'm extremely excited about that. To our YouTube members, as well as our Patreon members, guys, if you haven't queued in for this weekend's games, be sure to do so. Justin and I are going to be making a day of it. It's collectively a day off for us, so we're going to be hanging out all day. But we're going to jump on, I would say, around 5 p.m., Casually Competitive, they're available to meet at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. So if you haven't queued in over on the Discord, be sure to do so. I want to get in a few games, Justin and I, and then of course you guys, before we start the main event. And I don't think I'm going to make it a separate video. It's just going to be one very long video because that's how I roll, okay? Anyway, let's see here. Yeah, your audio is okay, Andrea. So I just adjusted it to a delay, an audio sync of like, I think it's measured in milliseconds, but I delayed it like 100 milliseconds because it seemed, at least in playback, I noticed that sometimes my audio seems in sync and then sometimes it's shifted and my words come out just a little bit more quickly before my mouth moves, which is really, really odd. But if that's true, with the minor adjustments I made, then hopefully it'll stay this way. It could just be a YouTube thing. It could be a Streamlabs thing. It could be a Mac thing. I have no idea at this point, but man, I certainly tried. Trent says, boom, to my nursery rhyme, I guess. Shadow bag combo in Gisa. You gotta tell me the cards shadow bag again, because I loosely remember what the shadow bag combo was. I'll put a combo or two in there. I don't know if it's going to be shadow bag one, but I've been trying to have a little bit of a think on this. I'm not going to lie, my attention's a little shifted. I really, really want to... Well, I haven't even had a chance to sit down and revise this. I feel like I've said this like for the last 2 weeks. That's what I've been wanting to do. I have not had a moment to do that. I haven't had a moment to look over what is more weighing on my mind than anything else so far as a personal list that I want to own and play is Arden and Tevesh. There's a Boon Weaver combo. No, it's no coincidence that I had a foil Boon Weaver in that previous YouTube short. I mean, today's YouTube short. I wanted to incorporate that in an Arden and Tevesh build, but not only to have as an outlet, or at least a catalyst with outlet to win the game, but potentially use Boon Weaver to pull stupid auras out of my deck and then auto-equip them with Arden to just slay people. So there's a couple of thoughts of brewing up there, but that's not what today's video is about. But I'm extremely excited about that. I have a couple ideas on Gisa, and we can obviously talk through anything you'd like to incorporate. This is a community build like every other cold brew. Obviously, to our YouTube members who voted on this, you should have seen the list of legendaries we had to vote on too. Like the other ones all had combo potential or just like innate value in the command zone, and Gisa was just there. I'm like, bonus, why not Gisa? And we all voted we all voted for Gisa apparently. I really love that fact though, because I wanted to build for her anyways, so this is a good opportunity for us to learn how difficult it can be in mono black sometimes. But because her strategy is so atypical, like I don't think we're going to have trouble with this. She just wants to murder things, which is really fun sometimes, especially when you can get value out of it. So there's that. You know, obviously I think there's some likeness to Turgrid, or at least some likeness is drawn to Turgrid. She functionally works the same way, but better. She's a little bit more expensive. She's the one with the lantern on the back, if I'm not mistaken. Lantern or scythe or something like that. But it's not Gisa. So That's why we're not doing her. Let me tune in with you guys to see how you're doing. I pulled 3 of her in my first pre-release, including 1 Eternal Night art, so best believe I'm excited for her. David, I hope this turns out well then. I'm extremely excited for it too. I've always loved Gisa. I think the art, for some reason, the artists they employ to do her artwork do such an amazing job. Like, I really love the original Gisa artwork, but I'm obsessed with the Glorious Resurrector artwork. It's probably one of my favorite pieces of art. And we can take a look at it in a second, I guess. It just looks so good. Like, the composition is so good, and she looks so happy. So I'm ecstatic to build for this as well. There's like a second delay, nothing off-putting. There's like a set, even still? Okay, see, well, that's why we're doing this, Luke. Tell me if this changes anything. Tell me if this changes anything. A second delay, and you mean to say that the card is coming before the horse? The audio is coming before I speak? Or is my mouth moving before the audio connects with it? Does that make sense? I've just shifted it a little bit there. Tell me if this is 120 milliseconds offset for the audio. 120 millisecond delay. Let me know if that works. And if this is any better. It's going to take a little bit of fine tuning, but that's why we have the show before the show. I appreciate you guys being here for this. You didn't want to call it grazy with Gisa? Like a cow grazing the humans and pooping out zombies? Well, they're not necessarily zombies, are they? Like, it doesn't make them zombies, unfortunately. They're just decayed, right? Which is kind of unfortunate because, unless I'm mistaken and decayed adds the keyword or subtype rather zombie, I don't think they're zombies. Thematically that's what they are, but it's important. It would be really nice if they were actually zombies, actually factually zombies. Pat, the last video of Brew Wars was good. The format is good, but I miss highlight of cards a little bit. But I like long games with people normally talking. Reminds me of the early videos of you guys. Oh, no shit. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Well, I mean, the last Brew Wars was... I'm going to change the thumbnail. I was on a vacation editing that. I was up till like 3 a.m. every night just to fill in for that video. And it's doing okay. Good lord. Yeah, I was on vacation doing that, and I just did not have the time to make the assets and do stuff that would differentiate it from general Brew Wars. But if you're referring to the happy hour segment that just came out, that's separate from Brew Wars. Like, the Brew Wars segment is still going to appear. And so far as like speaking on our hands, that's probably something I'm going to omit. For me, it's really more about the entertainment value. And also not making my guests suffer through me setting all this shit up. And then also me suffering through additional work. Because it doesn't pay. It really doesn't pay. So, yeah, I need to condense what's being done there. For whatever reason. These videos just don't want to take off. So, yep, all good now. Is that a fact, Luke? It's 120 milliseconds offset. So if that's a fact, I'm taking your word on it. I blame Elon Musk for the audio issues, Nathaniel. I agree. Homeward path, homeward path, homeward path. Homeward path, right? It's the land that lets you... I mean, are you saying like in opposition to Gisa? Because each player gains control of creatures he or she owns? Yeah. That would suck, wouldn't it? Well, you're also just giving other people their value back too, so you need to be mindful of like, well, is this combo creature better with that Gisa player? Do I really need my Arbor Elf back or whatever you had taken from you? Do I really need this back over like this person getting their combo creature? Because I think Gisa, for the most part, she's just borrowing them. I mean, that, as was mentioned, they have decay, so we're not talking on it yet, but we are talking on it. Necropotence Adnaz, Bag of Holding, Shadow of the Grave, Bone Miser, Discard. Oh my god, these are so many cards. Are people playing this? Bag of Holding, though, is a fun one, right? And then Shadow of the Grave is that one card with the cool art. Thank you for listing the combo, by the way. If you guys want to play Shadow Bag, Bilbo Shadow Baggins, there it is. Return to your hand all cards in your graveyard that were cycled. Yeah, okay. Cool. Pat sees a monocolor legendary spoiled. Also, Pat must build. Sometimes. I do like playing monocolored list. I don't know why. I have an affinity for them. But I am, again, extremely ecstatic to work on Arden and Tevesh. Maybe that'll be the next deck tech I put on the channel, because it is so not your average list. It's like, it is literally probably going to be one of the better Voltron builds you could possibly do. Orzhov has much of what you want in a Voltron package. So, and obviously Tevesh, draw engine, bodies, and a sack outlet in some instances is useful, coupled with Arden, who's just insanely good at maneuvering around equipment cost. So you can sort of cheat out hyper effective cards, play them onto the battlefield or cast them onto the battlefield, and or use things like Stoneforge Mystic. Or there's a couple of ways we can cheat on equipment. That's going to be really fun. So extremely excited, because it's a stacks list that moves quickly, that can also close the game very quickly with combat damage. So extremely stoked for that. But no, monocolored list. This is probably the only monocolored legendary that looks fun from this set, so we're doing it. And by the way, I'll mention it, I guess, when we start. How about that? I started playing MTG 2014 when Commander 2014 came out, not knowing much. I bought the black Commander deck and turned it into Gisa. Now, 7 years later, she returns, and I have a soft spot for her. Does she work with Draugr Necromancer? If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile that card with an ice counter on it. I don't think it works with... they don't really work well in tandem with each other. You may cast spells from among the exile ice counters. You may spend mana. No, I think that the effects are separate. So you'll choose a replacement, right? Because isn't Gisa... She also reads as a replacement. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. That also includes tokens. Not vital information. But yeah. She works with Draugr. No. They're both replacement effects. Thank you. Homeward Path Decayed post-combat trigger. You don't get the things, though. Alexi, excuse me. Each player gains control of all creatures he or she owns. Right? So if you control them as the Gisa player, but the owner of said card gets it back, right? So maybe not too useful. Oh, I'm looking forward to Gisa like a weaker Turgrid. Yeah, kind of. That I wouldn't hate playing against. Pat, do you think Shadowborn Apostles work in cEDH? These are the ones... All of these ones are a little difficult to operate with. Shadowborn Apostle... But this is the... I think they're expensive now, too. Jeez Louise. $450? Is that the average? One black human cleric. A deck can have any number of cards named Shadowborn Apostle. Perfect for commander. Pay a black, sacrifice 6 creatures named Shadowborn Apostle. Search the library for a demon creature card. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Well, it's odd. Like, you can have this. You can run this and go through... The requirement for this setup is far more extensive than just Entomb reanimating the thing you want, right? Like that, there's no sense in trying to reinvent that wheel. Like if you want to cheat out a thing, that's usually the best way to do it, especially in black. I think Shadowborn Apostle, it's obviously limited in its typing to demons, but it is a little gimmicky. And also the issue here is that if you just draw into the demon, said demon, you can only search your library for demons, so... Then you're stuck in the same boat you were prior, where you're like, well, what do I do with this thing in my hand? I need to cheat it on the battlefield. And if you were just playing like any other black reanimator list, you could like Cabal Therapy yourself / cast reanimate and then do it that way. And then that was like, you sacrifice Shadowborn Apostle to flashback Cabal Therapy to do that, right? It's like one black to do the thing you want to do. I don't know. It seems I'm iffy on this. I think the Dragons approach is a really cool one too. I don't know if it's good. I've not built a list for it, and maybe that's something that we can talk about. 99 members, official 99 members. If you guys want to see a Dragon approach list, I don't necessarily know what the best commander for that is, or pair of commanders, but it's something I've been wanting to do. It seems like a fun strategy. Like, what was I building just recently? I'm building, for this weekend, I'll be playing, Justin will be on Lear. Can't wait. And then I will be on Florian. And I was thinking, man, this would be kind of a cool Dragon Approach list because I can just keep going into the Dragon Approaches, exiling them, casting them, and stacking up that damage. The thing is, it's a little counterintuitive because you sort of want that damage to happen preemptively. And I kind of wish that Florian Red exile until your next turn, right? Because that way you can exile the strong arm tactics or whatever, mass damage effect you might have, and then cast it before you go to your post-combat, right? So the issue there being with the Dragon's Approach as him as like a build is like, yes, you'll get to Dragon's Approach because you're basically like really scrying well every turn, but you have only so much mana to work with every turn. So it's interesting. Hang tight till this weekend for my Florian build. And if you follow me on Tapped Out, you can actually see it now. I believe I make all these lists public, so you can see it now if you want. But if you want to join for this build, I'll highly encourage you to check out the description. It should be in the description. Hope I'm not lying to you. If it's not, then I'll ask you guys, the viewers. Oh, damn it. I'll ask you guys to please share this list with audience members. Okay, I gotta pull it up now. I'm gonna make absolutely certain that that you guys can actually see this deck. I think I added it to this before we went live, and then of course we can start this up. But yeah, I mean, I guess you guys want to follow along. I would hope so. Here you go. Is it in there? God, look at me. I was gonna do this before we started. Now, if you check the description, refresh your page. If you check the description, you will see the Gisa list. Perfect. Yeah, it should be there. Okay. Of course I would forget to do that. All right, let me tune in with you guys. I'll take a few more questions and then we can do this thing. We're all here to build Gisa, right? From 4 to 6 today. I might need to stop a little bit earlier. We'll see. This has been a really, if you can't tell, I'm wearing the same clothes I was wearing for that YouTube short just a minute ago. I've been slammed with work these last few days, but I have my sanity still, I think. We'll see after this deck build. What do you feel about Cabal Coffers? It's okay. Cabal Coffers you should pick up before it spikes again. Wasn't it just reprinted? Yeah. Urza Forever. Conjurer's Closet lets you keep creature Gisa revives, but it's super slow. You could, instead of a Conjurer's Closet, which I already have in the deck, if you're looking at it, you could just use Sundial of the Infinite. And I'll tell you how that works in a second. But Conjurer's Closet's 5 CMC. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So, 2 words we need to see there. Twice. Control, control. You control it with Gisa, you get to control it again when it enters the battlefield. So, yeah, it's useful. I would rather just use Sundial of the Infinite. And again, we'll talk about it in a second. Okay. Would you want to play Gisa? Would you want Gisa to step on you, Carter? What are we talking about? Yeah, maybe. Sounds good. Is she like a chiropractor? Does she know something about the world of masseusery? Yeah, Dragon's Approach is fun, Brew, too. I would imagine. What about Jaleva Dragon's Approach? I don't, Jaleva Dragon's... I feel like Jaleva's got like 101 ways to win a game. I don't know if she necessarily needs a Dragon's Approach, but you could do that. I guess you could do that. Such a handsome... Oh, thanks. Are we referring to Jaleva? I appreciate that. Is it Dragon's Approach? Yeah, that'd be kind of cool to do like a is it build with Dragon's Approach. As a matter of fact, that someone's asking me, one of our brewmasters on Patreon is asking me to do a Royal Chaser. What is the name of it? Something Royal Chaser. That I'm actually genuinely interested in. Right? That. I don't think that lends itself to being a Dragon's Approach build, but run Garuk's Wake for the memes. Garuk's Wake. Is this a... Wait, is this a black card? Yeah. Destroy all creatures you don't control and all planeswalkers you don't control. That's pretty dope. I wish it wasn't 9. Damn, there's some good art for this card, though. It's tempting for the memes. We could cheat this out. Just get some cost reducers on board. I wish this had Convoke or something. Jeez. All right. That might be something we look into. But speaking of, I think it's time for us to start this. Audio's good? Again, let me know mid-show, because I would rather this just be alleviated. Anyway. Gisa. Welcome back to the 99, where we're focused on brewing a better competitive commander. I'm your host, Patrick Marlette, and this is Cold Brew, where I take it from start to finish on a brand new deck. And today, we have voted on Gisa the Glorious. So, Gisa, no relation to Nissa, is 2 generic, double black, legendary creature, human wizard, 4/4 Bade. Man, speaking of stepping on things, she just crawled through a pile of zombies. Again, art. I mean, best art from the set, best art I've seen in a while. I want one of those shovels. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. Oh, cool. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gisa, Glorious Resurrector, onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed. Now, it would have been a big deal if it stated they get the zombie subtype. I think that would have thematically made sense and would have been really good for this build, because there's a lot of things that care about zombies being on the battlefield. It was like a swing and a miss with this character design. Like, we were almost there. Maybe they didn't want to confuse new players or some shit, but that would have been really cool. Like, I get, though, she's a necromancer. She's doing the thing. She's bringing him back from the dead. And unfortunately, Decayed, if you don't know what this does, let's read this friendly reminder text. A creature with Decayed can't block. What a shame. When it attacks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. So when it attacks, triggered ability. Anytime when you see the word when, whenever, at, it's a triggered effect, right? At the beginning of combat. Oh, that's another trigger. Rather, at the end of combat. So in this instance, at the end of combat, when that trigger goes on the stack for Decayed, I could roll with Sundial of the Infinite. For 2 generic artifact, pay 1, tap it, end turn. Activate this only during your turn. So what does this mean? You exile all spells and abilities on the stack. You discard down to your maximum hand size. You end the turn. You just end the turn. It's a really good failsafe for the deck. What was also nice is that when you have the at the end of combat, this Decayed creature dies that attacked, you can say, nah, it'll stay. It'll stay instead. Is that cool? Also, we have Dermotaxi in here. Now, Dermotaxi, and my general thought for this list is that how can we leverage these bodies without them going bye-bye? Like, what are the things we can do? And I've only sunk my teeth into a few effects, but obviously the crew mechanic comes to mind, Convoke comes to mind, Devour comes to mind. There's a ton of things that I can think of that we could leverage in this world, but I don't think any of them are really on the competitive side of things. And that's generally the way we lean when we approach decks on Cold Brew. But Dermotaxi seems like a really cool utility that functions well within this list. So, as Dermotaxi enters the battlefield, exile a creature card from a graveyard. Well, when these creatures die, right, you sacrifice them, they go back to the opposing graveyards. So you do have the opportunity. A creature an opponent controls would die. It bypasses this, right? So don't think about the top half anymore. When they get Decayed, they go away. They don't control them. They go back to their graveyards. You can use Dermotaxi to exile one of those creatures. Say there was a really good value creature that you wanted. Whatever the case. It enters, exiles the thing, and then you can tap 2 untapped creatures you control. Let's just say you kept 2 zombies around, or whatever they are, because they're not technically zombies. 2 Decayed things around. And then until end of turn, Dermotaxi becomes a copy of exiled card, except it's a vehicle, artifact, in addition to its other types. So it's a little bit of a gag, and we have to make a lot of assumptions with this deck when we're building it today, because we really can't state what's going to be on the field. We really can't assess what's going to be against us until we're actually playing. But note that the general goal here, at least in my opinion, is to get Gisa down and then kill everything. Don't let people have creatures. You should be the only person with creatures. We should run every reanimate spell. We should run every effect to leverage all these creatures. Maybe we run a few anthems, and of course we'll run a combo or 2. But we want all the creatures. Maybe we even have a few token generators to make sure that when we say everyone sacrifices a creature, it's like, oh, it's that Bitter Blossom Fairy, or oh, it's that Ophiomancer Snake, or oh, it's that zombie over there. It won't matter to us, but it will matter to our opponents, because we're going to keep hitting their creatures. If there's a Najeela, kill the Najeela. Kill the Najeela, and then maybe take it if they let you. That's the other issue with this, right? Because there are only going to be so many value creatures that aren't opposing commanders. And with opposing commanders, they can just be like, oh, no, I'll put it back in the command zone instead, right? Because it would shift zones. They could just say, no, I don't want it in exile. I want to put it in the command zone. Does that mean it gets dragged back out with Gisa? I'll need a rules lawyer for that. But I don't think that's going to be problematic for us. By and large, we're going to steal other value creatures that hit the field and hopefully get something off of them. And obviously, they get to enter the battlefield and do all the stuff that a creature would normally do when it ETBs, LTBs, all that fun stuff. At any rate, land base, pretty basic. It's everything you'd want from a mono black list. Just a few value pieces in here. Things like Emergent Zone we're not going to be using because we're not really going to win at instant speed, I don't imagine. Urza Saga is in here because I can imagine us using some decent pieces of artifact. And then also, I kept Vault of Whispers. I don't know if this is going to go an ad nauseum route. I feel like we're probably going to have a high CMC, but things like Vault of Whispers is just really good if you're rolling with a Mox Opal, and Mox Opal is really good when you're rolling with ad nauseum. So I wanted to put at least one artifact land in there. I don't think I got the Darksteel Citadel in here. In Witch's Cottage. Because it's a decent utility land, and we can actually leverage it in a mono black list, especially when you're on Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, you should have the swamps. Other than that, guys, I think we need to get ready to add some cards. And I didn't preload anything in here because we can assume there's going to be a couple things that we're just going to want to put in a mono black list. But I want to start with some of the basics, in my opinion, and that is each player sacrifices a thing, or just sacrifice creature specifically. And afterwards, we can look up sacrifice permanent. You know, there might be something within the world of mono black that I haven't seen since recently. But sacrifice creature is sort of where I want to start. But let me check on you guys. Would you want Gisa to step on you? Yes, I answered this. Let's see here. My friend gave me this card. I put it in my Marin group sack deck. Then he took his card back. Ah, shit. I'm sorry. That's a shame. But yeah, any thoughts on Gisa? Throw them at me. Obviously, I'm willing to take any of your suggestions, this being a cold brew as it is. But yeah, if you guys want to participate in these cold brews or bi-weekly gameplay, be sure to join the 99 as a member. One, you're helping the channel, and then two, you get to participate in more stuff here. And I'm hoping to make live streams more of a constant thing here because I enjoy the hell out of these. Even if they are long. I was getting complaints about the length of these episodes, and it's like, well, I can't build a deck in 20 minutes. I'd be really impressive if I could, but not a good one. Even these ones in 2 hours take. I mean, they need a little bit of refinement, if I'm going to be honest with you. But we're going to skip past the majority of these. I do want to utilize sack outlets like Phyrexian Tower, which I believe is like in our list. Because obviously these bodies are, they only, if they're decayed, they only go away if they attack. So we can leverage them in other ways. And I want to research that with you guys, but the way I see it, the first thing we need to do is just start having everyone sacrifice their creatures. And or mass destruction. We can use Toxic Deluge or anything like that as well. But let me go ahead and take a look here. Waste Not and Bone Miser. Plague Crafter obviously feels yeets. Yeah, we'll put in a Plague Crafter right now. And if you guys don't know Plague Crafter, we're probably going to pass it. But Plague Crafter is a 3 CMC creature. When he enters the battlefield, everyone, well, I guess I can look at it here. Everyone sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker, and if they don't, they discard a card. So there's some cool stuff here. As additional cost to sacrifice a creature. It's like something Bone Splinters. It seems like a joke, but it's like, I'm using your creature to kill another one of your creatures. Kind of laughable. If this was instant speed, maybe I'd want it, but there are better things to do with our turn. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, choose a non-land card name. Then target player reveals their hand and discards all cards out of that name. You got to be really good. I mean, you'll generally know what some opponents are holding. So, like, this isn't bad. This isn't bad. You know what? I'll put Cabal Therapist on the side. Like, if there was ever a list, right? We're getting all the creatures we want. In an ideal world, we're going to have at least a couple excess creatures. That's not bad. Speaking of, I like things like Cabal Therapy for a reanimate strategy. These are very cheap to do, very cheap and effective. And of course, we also have the sacrifice creature component here. So with Cabal Therapy, you could actually just name a non-land card at random and be like, okay, I want you to discard your ad nauseum. And then that player reveals his hand or her hand to the whole table. and discards any cards of that name. What's cool though is like if I also have your Dryad Arbor, I can do this again. I just run it right back from my graveyard. I'm like, well, I know your hand now. Get rid of the thing. Cabal Therapy is kind of cool, actually. I'll put it in the list. And again, it's just a really good reanimate card, especially in mono black, because if you happen to know that you have your reanimate creature in hand, let's just say Razaketh in this instance, Razaketh might be a really good creature to run out in this deck because we're getting so many bodies to play with. It's actually really not a bad build for Razaketh. Then, you know, we could just say Cabal Therapy ourself Razaketh, right? Which is actually pretty sound strategy to set up a reanimate line instead of doing Shadowborn Apostles. No offense. You could, but a little bit better. Rankle fits well. Rankle, we'll get there, but I want to look up Rankle just for you guys. Each player discards a card, each player sacrifices a creature, each player loses 1 life and draws a card. So this is on the this is on combat damage, right? So what's cool is that you'll get the damage off with your borrowed creatures, and then you could say everyone sacrifices a creature. So it's sort of like it's like a perpetual engine of bodies. Provided people are playing creatures at this point, a Rankle will be really decent at refueling your creature line, and then also you just have all this stuff fodder to get rid of anyways. I like Rankle here. It's a little costly, and it's also in the same slot as Gisa, so you need to think about what you're prioritizing. Clearly, Gisa, but if I'm not mistaken, I think Rankle has haste. Yeah, so we're good. Rankle should be fine. Anyway, mass sacrifice is what I'm looking for. But things like Culling the Weak are going to be good. Obviously, you know, there are a bunch of just utilities that we're going to be running that require us to sacrifice a creature, and we'll go over those in a second. Most of them are staples like Diabolic Intent and stuff, and we'll get to that in a second. But I just want to take a gander at some other things first. Oh my god, as additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature or pay. That's okay. Again, why is the sorcery speed? Like, you're really asking a lot for this to be sorcery speed. Rough times. But yeah, I'm going to keep looking. There are things that say mass sacrifice, so like Innocent Blood, each player sacrifices a creature. That's really good for this deck. Also amazing art. So yeah, we're going to use that. Is Dothy in? You could use Dothy Voidwalker. It's always in. It's a really good black card. This list is going to run slower, so I honestly don't mind that Dothy is on the slower end. For each creature, its controller sacrifices it unless he or she pays X life. No, that's crap. Don't want that. Do not want that card. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I don't want to need that. Oh my gosh, we can actually cast a Phyrexian Devour and maybe get the 12 power in on that. Gosh, that'd be amazing. We're not going to do that, though. Whenever a creature dies, you may put it... Well, I mean, that is the goal, and going wide is the thing, and it is a black zombie giant. Is there a token for this? Yes, there is. Yeah, we'll do Quest for the Gravelord. I don't know if it's going to stay in the list, but... what the heck? Why not? I mean, we should be able to get there pretty quickly, and then you just have a 5/5 beater. And in an ideal world, no one will have blockers, right? That's sort of where we're trying to get this deck to go. Sacrifice is also a really cool one. As a matter of fact, we'll just add Sacrifice now. You just add mana based on the creature's CMC. So if we steal a biggin, we can swing with that biggin. And then obviously, this is instant speed, this interrupt. So you could do this on combat and then cast Ad Nauseam and still get the damage or whatever. Again, that's if we go the Ad Nauseam route. Elsewise, you just cast it at sorcery speed, like during one of your main phases. And just be happy, damn it. Just be happy. Discard a card, sacrifice now. We don't need that. Whenever 3 or more quest counters are on Soul... No, don't need that. More stuff like Spark Harvest. Don't need that. But yeah, just looking for the mass sacrifice. There is stuff, I promise. Village Rites, and then there's another one that sacrifices. Didn't something else come out very similar to Village Rites? Tell me that card. Tell me that card, please, please. It's 2 CMC, and then you choose X number of creatures, and you draw per creature that died. So very good with decaying bodies, right? Vona's Hunger. Vona's Hunger. I'll look at that really quick. Phone is hung. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you have City's Blessing instead, each opponent sacrifices half the creatures rounded up. At least it's sorcery speed. I'll put that in the maybe slot because I don't know how many we're going to actually need to run out. But this one's not bad. We have some that are in the 2 and under slots. So let's just find those baddies first, right? We're getting there now. I'm just looking through all the utilities as we do. Sacrifice creature, draw 2 cards. No, there's a better one. There's one from Fallen Empires. Can't remember the name. Is there? At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 5 or less life, no. Don't want to be in that state. We can just add the animate spells now. And I mean animate dead, Dance of the Dead. And then we're also going to add Necromancy. Just because I imagine us using those cards. Want to get the most out of those bodies we're putting on the field. Whenever you play a non-creature spell, counter that spell unless you sacrifice a creature. Damn, Blood Funnel. This might be the deck for you. This might be the deck for you, Blood Funnel. I'm going to try it. I mean, we need to assume a lot again. But if we're getting bodies, if we're just getting bodies, and we're reducing the cost of our non-creature spells by 2, that's pretty damn good. Again, that kind of makes me think like, man, wouldn't Peer into the Abyss, wouldn't Ad Nauseam be real sweet? It could be. Again, anything that's going to leverage a lot of bodies for us is what I want. But yeah, let's go ahead and look. I think all of the Mass Sacrifice, I believe, is at sorcery speed. Like Myron Misery, all that stuff is at sorcery, which is kind of unfortunate. But we'll keep looking. Innocent Blood was sorcery. I think Plum the Forbidden. Thank you. You guys are right. It's Plum the Forbidden. For sure. And I can just reconfirm here. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. This is for each... you may sacrifice 1 or more creatures. You get to copy this spell for each creature you sacrifice this way. That's actually really useful, generating copies. That way someone can't just counter or nix the 1 spell and say all of your work is for naught. That's actually really nice. That's a really big dig. Draw 2 cards and create a treasure as additional cost to cast a spell. Sacrifice an artifact or creature. I thought Deadly Dispute was pretty good when it came out. And in a mono black world, it's really not that bad, Deadly Dispute. And at instant speed, we'll try Deadly Dispute. Again, I don't know if it hangs around. I don't know if it's good enough to hang around. Veritas Maneuver, Plunge into Darkness. Plunge into Darkness cares about bodies. One second and Plunge into Darkness. I'm tempted. Veritas Maneuver. Sacrifice, target player sacrifice trigger. I don't want that. Okay, I'll add Diabolic Intent because I'm looking at it, but I'm probably going to stop right around 3 CMC. Like, we're not going to need any sort of mass anything spell at 3 CMC. There's more sacrifice creature in black than I thought there would be. Let me start there. I'm impressed by the amount of sacrifice creature in black here. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. This is instant speed. If you control a Liliana Planeswalker, they also discard a card. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but the dream is still alive with this one. Like, it's good. It's good at what it does. Liliana's... Wait, no. Triumph, right? Am I just not seeing it? No. There we go. Cool. Soul Exchange. Ritual of the Machine is pretty dope. I agree. I don't think we need Ritual of the Machine, though. Ooh, damn. If we had, if there was Arden, they just sacrifice creatures when you're swinging. That'd be pretty sweet. The controller of enchanted creature sacrifices at the end of his or her. No, I don't need that. This is what one of them I was referring to. Myron Misery. They do have the choice, mind you, to just get rid of an enchantment, but I like it. I still like it. We'll take it. We'll take it. We'll take what we can get in mono black. Sacrifice 3 rats. Damn. I wish he made them rats. Plum the Forbidden right there. So this is the cool one that we were talking about. So what's nice about Plunge into Darkness is that it's an entwined spell, so you can choose both modes. And let's just say you go through the steps of attacking with these creatures, and let's just say we have, at this instance, we have 4 creatures that aren't ours. We can go ahead at the end of combat while those triggers are on the stack and then put Plunge into Darkness into play, sacrificing any number of those creatures. all 4 of them. So that's 12 life added to our total. Let's just say we had 38 at this point. We have 50 life. And then we can choose to look at the top X cards of our library. So these 2 things happen in sequence. So I'll have 50 life, and then I can say, oh, now I want to dig 30 cards, or however many cards you want, to find a possible solution. I do like Plunge into Darkness here. Again, this is a good way to leverage that top half of the card. And thank you for the suggestion. Whoever said Plunge into Darkness. Good call. Pyre of Heroes. Now, this is an oddity, but it could be decent. Only because we're going to have a lot of different creature typings, but there's no way in saying what we'll have, so... But I do like that conceptually. Target opponent sacrifices a blit. Nope, I don't want target opponent. I want each. Each. Let's just do each and sacrifice. How about that? This might help us in our search. Oh, yes. It definitely did. I think we've gotten... Oh, wow. We're already there. Okay. Sacrifice another creature. Smallpox. Each player loses 1 life, discards a card, sacrifices a creature, then sacrifices a land. I kind of like Smallpox here. I kind of like Smallpox. Late to the party, but if you update your Arden into Vesh with that Boonweaver, I'm all in for a nice video. Me too, Brian. And again, if you're stoked for that, like that might be... That'll be a pre-recorded thing. It's something I've been working on for a while. And again, there's so many decks that you guys just don't see because I work on them frequently and I don't always like how they turn out. But that's what I've been working on for, again, since Commander Legends, and one I really want to own in paper. So definitely expect one. I've got a lot of ideas that I just want to put on paper and do with that list. It's going to be really good. It's funny, I've been selling a lot of reserve list cards recently just to go through my collection because my playgroup's totally fine with proxies. That's what we do. Oswald's not proxy, but everything else practically is. There's always like a proxy or 2 in these decks. But I wound up keeping Scrubland and I wound up keeping my Yawgmoth's Will because I'm like, well, I can actually see myself wanting to play this in person. And if someone did have a qualm, then I would have that list and I would have Oswald to play. I don't foresee that being an issue, but if it ever did become one, like, you're going to get your ass kicked by real cards. Is that fun? If Torture gets more votes, this is a really fun card that I am using in my Florian build, but it's also a good way to potentially not only damage them, but get them to nix another creature. And in most instances, they're just going to save 4 life. So is 2 mana for 4 life on each player good enough? Probably not in this build, but for Florian, Tyrant's Choice is really good. I kind of want to look up things that say whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, because we should hopefully be doing that quite a bit. Whenever you cast a spell that targets agent of never going to happen. Each player loses. We can also just do Pox, which could be very bad for us, but we could do Pox. Whenever a creature dies, put a corpse counter on. Nope, don't need that. Someone was saying Master Bantu, if I'm not mistaken. I think we're good on Bantu, though. Demon's Disciple. Enters the battlefield. Each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. This is very similar to our Plague Crafter, but not as good. But also playable. It's a 3/1. That's not so bad. It's a fleshbag. It's a better fleshbag Marauder, a lesser Plague Crafter. But we're gonna go ahead and add Demon's Disciple because honestly, planeswalkers, they are becoming more problematic, and it's just nice to have options for them. And this is just an option for them. You generally, when a player plays a planeswalker, it's usually their only planeswalker. So also we could just do, not just because we have Liliana's Triumph in the list, but because I love this card, we could just add Liliana of the Veil. Again, it's targeted, but at a certain point, if we're just trying to kill things and wipe the board, this will be very good. So yeah. Also note, it's actually potentially good to add things like Massacre, or each creature gets negative blah. So end of turn. Those wouldn't be bad. I think Massacre we would avoid because Gisa is a 3/3 or a 4/4. She dodges a lot of the negative spells, so we can definitely add the Toxic Deluge and all that stuff. I just need to take a gander at, again, here's a Plague Crafter. This is what a good uncommon looks like. But yeah, we could do that. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice each other creature you control. Don't want that. Discard 2 cards and then you give someone this. So what's cool about this is this is a really cool way to make it so that your opponents are constantly sacrificing creatures, right? They're also getting a 6/5 body, but it's a cool way to do it because you can give this to someone by choosing an opponent and then returning Plague Reaver from your battlefield to the battlefield under an opponent's control. So maybe it's like a reanimate target, but I don't want to discard 2 cards for that. That seems a little rough. And here's Pox. But Pox is pretty damning too, and it could bite us in the ass if we were on the wrong end of it. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the highest converted CMC. So again, we're in that 3 CMC range, and I think it is time for the Vona's Hunger. I think it is time for the Soul Shatter. And again, whether they stay or not is the real question. I think we do want enough redundancy in this department, though. So I will actually put that on the main board. I thought we would find a few more each sacrifice, but let's look at the negative spells as well. And if you know the negative spells off the top of your head, let me know. Like all of the Massacres of the world. You know, I think Black Sun Zenith, is that not like a variable X spell? We'll see. Diabolic Edict. I wanted to go for mass removal. Are there any tribal decks that are viable in cEDH? I don't know, Deep Sea Octopus. Or Mutilate. You could say, I guess, Marwyn. Same effects, but you... okay, well, let's look at Mutilate. Let me get to the 4 CMC slot. There we are. And then we'll look at Mutilate. Yeah. For each swamp you control. My issue with this is that, you know, I want to make sure that Gisa stays around, right? And Gisa's a 4/4. So things again like Massacre, which is also free in many instances. -2, -2, you're just going to get rid of a lot of things. Like a lot. 2 is a lot. You'd be surprised at how much a Pyroclasm really works still. Was Massacre Girl any good for this list? Enters the battlefield. Each creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. When a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets... Damn, that's actually kind of dope. That's kind of dope. I don't know if we need that as an engine. Massacre Worm also as a reanimate target would be kind of cool. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies. I wish it was owned, and then we would double down on that bottom trigger. Massacre was a good word to look up. Jeez. Okay, here you go. Meat Hook Massacre. You guys wanted it? Here it is. And what's nice is that if we do actually run a loop, like a grave loop in this list, which we can, Meat Hook Massacre is going to be very good for just being an aristocrat. There aren't that many aristocrat builds in a cEDH setting, I'm going to be honest with you. But Meat Hook Massacre is going to do a lot of stuff we want successfully, so I think it makes sense in a mono black build. Dead of Winter, and I think we're actually on Snow Plains. Did I do that? Was I cool like that? Wait up. Did I say plains? We're on swamps. You could tell I'm a mono white boy at heart. But Dead of Winter is really cool. It's based off of the number of snow plains you have. All non-snow creatures get -X until the end of turn, where X is the number of snow permanents you control. So yes, but my issue with this is that, again, like if we are at that cap, right, where we hit 4 snow swamps, I was gonna say plains again, we're gonna try to, we wouldn't really want to cast that spell because we don't really want Gisa dying, right? That's tricky. Let me know any of the other each -X. Will this work? Will this actually work? Maybe it will. Okay. Each -X, -X. And let's just see if Toxic Deluge shows up, because that's like really the... I don't think this is going to do exactly what I want it to do. Okay. We want Toxic. I think we want Black Sun Zenith. I think being the operative word. I don't remember how it works. Counters? Oh god. That's not what we want. We want temporary damage. Drown in Sorrow. Okay, I'm gonna read through anything you guys mentioned. There's that new yes, Ruben, Meat Hook Massacre, and Drown in Sorrow. So just keep shouting them out if you know them, and then we can sort of grade them as we go along. All creatures get -2, -2 until end of turn. Scry 1. Yes. Yes. Yes and no. Yes and no. But yes. Yeah. Okay. The Scry 1. Scry 1. Really? That's kind of low. Yeheni's Expertise is pretty dope, though. Only because it lets you cast another spell after the fact, right? So Yeheni's... There's this art that I own. I've always wanted to play. We're going to switch to it right now. I promise. All creatures get -3/-3 into the end of turn. This is really perfect in a Gisa build because guess what? She's a 4/4. You may cast a spell with a mana value of 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So clearly, pretty decent. So yeah, we'll do Yeheni's Expertise. And again, we're really piling it on here. Like, I don't know if we need this much mass remove. Who am I kidding? We want it. We do want it. Let's just see if there's any -3 in general, and we'll go down the line. I know that's kind of silly, but that's where I'm at. Ah, oh, damn it. Okay. There's no good way to search it, to my knowledge. And again, if you know of any things that just enter the battlefield and people die, that'd be perfect. Killing Wave is the variable one. Am I right? Yeah, so they'll pay the life is my issue here. Like, there's no reason they wouldn't pay the life. God damn, that art is good. All these cards with amazing art that are just not going to be played. Torment of Hellfire. See, that one's variable, though. I'm looking for the ones that just damage creatures, make them sacrifice creatures, things that specifically target creatures. Torment of Hellfire, again, they're left with options, and it's still good. Don't get me wrong, it's still very good, but I want to ensure that we're killing the thing. Archfiend of Dep. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player chooses up to 2 creatures. Oh, you know what we should do? This is fine. The fact that it's end step bothers me. Like, that's a long time to wait. A lot can happen during a player's turn for this to only trigger at the end. But the fact that it's each opponent's is pretty solid. I don't know if they're ever going to... We'll see. What I want to do, though, is sacrifice creature. There's a bunch of things, if I'm not mistaken, that operate in this way. There's a 4 CMC spell, like whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice another creature, or blobbity bloop. Let's just see if we can't find those suckers real quick. Whenever Arya or another black creature enters the battlefield, we could go for like a Acerec sort of build too if we wanted. That'd be kind of cute, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? I want them sacrificing things constantly, though. So let me just see if there's a black spell that does exactly what I'm talking about. Whenever a creature comes into play, its controller sacrifices a creature or land. Oh my god, that's dope. Oh, that's really dope. That's really dope. Why is this really dope? So if we were to prematurely kill one of their creatures while this triggers on the stack, right? If it's just that one creature, they're going to need to get rid of lands. And regardless, we're going to get the creature, right? So if I dismember that creature before you tragic slip that creature, whatever, before you have an opportunity to say, I'm going to sacrifice this creature, then you just sacrifice a land, please. And then obviously we're going to have creatures to do Tainted Ether. We can let the creature die when it comes back. But if it's a better creature than something we have, we can swap them out. This is clearly expensive, but it is doing what we want. So... There's also a reserve list card that functions for the same thing. I'm not really sure we're going to use that. Massacre Girl. Massacre Girl. Yeah, we looked over her lodge. I'm not certain that Massacre Girl... She's the right fit. Oh, man, I don't know. The thing is, at a certain point, we will be able to hardcast Massacre Girl. Do we like Massacre Girl? Let me look at Massacre Girl one more time. And then I'll look at Anawan. Each other creature gets -1/-1 until the end of the turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl. Damn. I do like her. And the thing is, like, we have ways to bring her ass back out. Specifically legendaries like Goryo's Vengeance. Like stuff like this. Return target legendary creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So there's some legendaries that we're going to want to roll with, Razaketh in particular, but if we do a Massacre Girl, that's also a really good way to just like level the field, hopefully, provided we have other cards that'll work in tandem with her to just kill the creatures. Bearing in mind, though, you still want Gisa to survive, so we might be using more targeted removal in that instance, but it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea, I'll say that. But I really like Massacre Worm too. Again, these aren't really, it's weird. I kind of like Massacre Worm more, if I'm going to be honest with you. Because the static effect here is really decent. Because this is only per turn. This is like any turn a creature dies and a creature an opponent controls dies, they lose 2 life. I like Massacre Worm as a reanimate target more, but I'm not going to say that one either are really worth it. I'm still going to refrain from adding them. Gisa would bring creatures back on your board, and then you'd have to sack something. Yeah, are you saying with the Ether? Yeah. Anawan. Let's look at Anawan really quick. Did I spell that right? Are we spelling it right? The Rune Sage? At the beginning of your upkeep, each player sacrifices a non-vampire creature. There's another legendary that we could Goryo's Vengeance out, which I just add, right? I just added Goryo's Vengeance. Sure. We also just want Reanimate in there. Sorry. Probably add that in Tomb. But let me make sure I didn't just put 2 Reanimates in here. Oh, Rankle is also a legendary. At the beginning of your upkeep. Now I can understand why we like the Archfiend a little bit more. At the beginning of opponent sacrifices creature. Let's just spell it out as plainly as possible and see if we can find a way to do this with permanency that we like. And it could be a reanimate thing, but a lot of these we've seen already, like the keywording is the same, but I want to see if we can't find target opponent. No, I don't want target opponent. I like at the beginning of upkeep, that sort of thing, whenever. Maybe we look up the word whenever. At the beginning of each combat, and if an opponent may sacrifice a creature, no, we don't want that. If an opponent, I just can't. I need to. I'm imagining that there's something like Archfiend of Depravity, but just makes them sacrifice it because we want. I just want them to sacrifice creatures. Is that so difficult? But Gisa, at the beginning of your upkeep, put all creatures. So like we want it happening off turn so that Gisa can get them on our turn, right? And then we're immediately good to do a thing with them, whether that be sacrificing them or running them into the targets if we have like Haste Enabler or something like that. Each sacrifice is a... Nope. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card unless target opponent sacrifices a creature. It pays 3 life. That's kind of cute. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. That's a way to do it. But nope. I'm more or less looking for a creature to do this because we can reanimate said creature, right? Sacrifice 3 creatures to transform her. Oh, so dope. It actually works. That actually works quite a bit. Voldaren Pariah. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, nah, never gonna happen. Whenever it enters battlefield, nope. Whenever opponent searches their library, I actually really like this Ob Nixilis, but kind of never leveraged. Whenever another creature you control dies, this is the same thing as Anawan. Maybe better. Yeah. Okay. I think we found what we want so far as creature sacrificing. Massacre Worm is better. Yeah, I feel that way. I feel like Massacre Worm is better. Do we want Massacre Worm in the list? And you guys can let me know. Does that titillate anyone's interest? But Mr. Umizawa, we can look at Umizawa really quick. Whenever a creature an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from play, you may play. Now, mind you, it's going to avoid, because of how Gisa reads, whenever a creature your opponent controls dies, they're not technically going to the graveyard, right? They're going to exile. So dies would say battlefield to graveyard. Although it's not stating you may cast target instant from your graveyard. That's weird. So normally when a card says if it was put into a graveyard, dies would imply put into a graveyard. So I don't think this works. Someone can correct me though. I don't know if we're going to use Toshiro anyways, but Vona's Hunger went in. The Abyss is there, right? So the Abyss is the card I was referring to that's on the reserve list. Like, I don't expect anyone to buy this, right? Don't. There are better things you should be doing with your money. But at the beginning of each player's upkeep, destroy target non-artifact creature that player controls of their choice. It can't be regenerated. So Yes, it is a world enchantment though, so if another one is played, oopsies. Yeah, the Abyss is fine. Or not. We'll put in the Abyss. Proxy that shit, please. Yeah, this deck is wants Contamination. And why it would want Contamination is because you need to sacrifice a creature, right? So during your upkeep, sacrifice a creature or sacrifice Contamination. Whenever a land is tapped for mana, it produces black instead of its normal type. You're absolutely right. This is very much a Contamination list. So, yes. You know what's also interesting is that is this a smokestacks list? Right? Now, it would be really cool if we could also add... What's her name? Not Brea. That poor girl that's been banned forever. Braids. Braids is smokestacks, right? But at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact or creature or land. So this is also forcibly having people sacrifice things, and I don't think it's going to be their lands. I don't think it's going to be their artifacts. It's probably going to be their creatures for the most part. Is this a smokestacks list? Question for you. I think it kind of is. But yes, I agree with Contamination wholeheartedly. Trent says, I think Contamination is good. And yes, free braids. Please. Why haven't we? Why haven't we? Oh, Shieldred. Thank you for that. Did I miss any other good ones? Repeat yourself if I missed you. But at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. Jesus Christ. Where were you? Where were you, Steve D? Where have you been? This deck needed you. And you denied it. Yeah, I like Shieldred a lot. It's kind of perfect with smokestacks. we're gonna add it. No one's really answering me on this, so yeah, yeah, it's a smokestacks list now. Sorry. What about Nightmare Shepherd? I'll look at that. Shieldred's clearly the creme de la creme. Okay, Shieldred is the one we want to go for as a reanimate target, and then everything else is clearly not going to be as good unless Nightmare Shepherd just blows the socks off of Shieldred. Oh, I like this card actually. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 and it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. So there's this, which automatically happens, right? Ooh, I kind of like Nightmare Shepherd too. Damn, there's a lot of really stupid stuff going into this list that I really like. I'm kind of stoked. Again, are all of these sticking? I can't rightly say, but I do want to say create a copy. So there are some things that allow you to copy creatures as they enter the battlefield, right? So that wouldn't be awful. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you may exile it. Exile that card if you do. So there's a good way to get it back. I don't think any of these outside of this one are going to be good. Like Minion Reflector, right? Whenever a non-token creature comes into play under your control, you may pay 2. So there's a cool way to double down on any creatures you're getting. Obviously, these still need to be sacrificed, but really not bad. Like, no, there's really not. I don't think there's anything here that is low enough that it warrants playing it. Nightmare Shepherd, not so bad. I think that this list can honestly use a Heartless Summoning. Depending on the amount of creatures like we actually run, Heartless Summoning might be good. It's a cost reductor for creatures. Although, bearing in mind, they do get a -1/-1. So that does lower the bar for Gisa, right? So far as our negative spells are concerned, like Toxic Deluge, all that stuff. But it's still really good. I think it's pretty decent. Liliana Dreadhorde General could put in some work too. 6 dead creatures when it comes down and draws cards off decayed things dying. Yeah, you're so right. I've been wanting to play this Liliana. Are you trying to make Liliana's Triumph discard our opponents? Is that what we're doing here? Because I like it. This obviously, this is very much a top end play, especially if you buy this one. Damn, just buy this swank ass. Yeah, we'll put Liliana Dreadhorde General in for now. Again, she's rather expensive and we don't have a good way to cheat her out, but I think we could get there. There's a Secret Lair one? Sure. Wait, is this Dreadhorde General? There's a Secret Lair one? Oh, it's a stained glass one. Oh, no shit. That's kind of cool. Priest of Forgotten Gods. All right. And then we're going to move on with just some staple things, okay? Sacrifice 2 creatures. Any player of any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. Ooh. Shit. That's a good one. Yes, it is. Yes, Priest of Forgotten Gods. Thank you. Both of you. All of you for saying Priest of Forgotten Gods. Steve D for Shieldred. Thank you. Knight Incarnate. Also, Lifeline would be fun, janky kind of card to run with your permanence. Lose the Knight Incarnate. Ooh. Yes. All creatures get Ooh, to evoke this? This actually works really well. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone said Force of Despair? Is this the one? Destroy all creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. This is only going to be so good, but it's a free spell. There aren't that many free spells we get to use, right? Deadly Rollick doesn't really aid the cause here, but it's still a good free spell. Knight Incarnate, I wish it had Flash, man. I don't know. It's fine. It's a sorcery way to do the thing. What is an instant speed way to just kill all the things? Again, it's killing me that it won't let me look up negative. I feel like we're probably missing something there, but that's okay. And Lifeline is, it could be good. Lifeline, one word here. Whenever a creature dies, if another creature is on the battlefield, return the first card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. It is owner's control, though, so that's tricky. Don't want to necessarily do that all the time. Is this reserve list? This is reserve list and only $40. I say that. Only $40. Whenever a creature dies, if another creature is on the battlefield, return that first card to sunset. It's kind of cool utility. At 5 CMC, it's just a little too high, though. I don't know if it's worth running. It really depends on what the list is doing. But at end of turn, the only one time you get to do that, not that great. But let's add some basic black utilities. Demonic Tutor. Diabolic Intent I already added, so I mean obviously, right? Vampiric Tutor we want to add. We're also going to do, I'm trying to think of how many of the tutor suite we really want in here. Wishclaw Talisman. We also have Entomb in the list already. I didn't add like a really good line of play for Buried Alive, but Unmarked Grave would be good, I think. We also want, so far as our tutor suite is concerned, Imperial Seal. We have the Wishclaw Talisman in there. There are some oddities, right? Like Scheming Symmetry would be okay. I don't really think so. We don't really have that many great ways to draw on this list, right? So we need to consider the Dark Confidant of the world, excuse me, the Dark Tutelage of the world. But is that it for the tutors? Damn, that's pretty sad. I thought Black was known for this. Am I missing anything? Decree of Pain. I'll look at this one before we continue with our staples here. Decree of Pain. Cycle. I see. So that's a nice instant way to do it, right? Draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. Damn, that's really dope. It is 8 mana, obviously, off the top end there, but whenever you cycle Decree of Pain, that's not bad. I kind of wish that was 4 CMC. I'll bear this in mind. I'm not... Oh, God, come on, man. You really want me to play this card? I kind of want to play this, especially with what's already fall, right? Especially with Spooktober coming. Decree of Pain looks really dope. You stopped at they sacrifice creatures on priests. You also get mana. No, I know. I saw. I very silently, Trent, glanced over that and thought, why didn't I think of this? But yes, you're right. It's very good. A Dark Ritual Jet Medallion. I think Jet Medallion may find a home here. It looks like the top end of this list is pretty high. Dark Ritual, obviously, Cabal Ritual, all makes sense. Just our basic ritual cards. I don't think there are very many other ones we want outside of Culling the Weak. I've added Sacrifice. Plumb the Forbidden is something we added. Village Rites is something we added, right? Little draw utility here or there. Any other nice utilities that say as additional cost Sacrifice? Because I kind of want to, as additional cost Sacrifice. We can look at those right quick. There's only so many. But, oh, you don't know, Nicholas. I don't know quite what the list is, as I only joined kind of recently, but what about Decaying Soil? If not in this list, it's... we can look at this really quick as well. Decaying Soil is a little bit of an oldie. By the beginning of your upkeep, exile a card from your graveyard. Threshold. As long as there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, Decaying Soil says, whenever a non-token creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 1. If you do, return that card to your hand. I don't know about that. It's not... And Threshold's not going to be easy, I don't think, for us to hit. But I do want to look up City's Blessing really quick, because we're going to have a lot of permanents. Right. As long as you have the City's Blessing, nope. All creatures get -2 until end of turn. If you have City's Blessing instead, only creatures your opponents control get -2. Golden Demise, damn, that's actually not bad for us. Again, I hate the fact that this is another sorcery speed spell that we're adding to the list. I prefer Vona's Hunger in this instance quite a bit more, but it tried. And just out of sheer curiosity, Convoke, maybe. I want to do something more with the bodies. And obviously, I would also want to look at Vehicles Crew. I want to look at Crew right quick. And then obviously, we need to go back to look at that other thing we were looking at. Jeez Louise. Unmake the Graves. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hands. Not good enough. Ooh, Mob, though. Mob's a good one, just on flavor. I kind of like Mob quite a bit. Destroy target creature with the creatures we're stealing. That's so good. I don't know if it's good enough, though. Thematically, though, I really like it. Okay, moving on. I just want to go over this right quick, and then we can move on with life. Burnt Offering is, unfortunately, black-red. Yeah, someone mentioned that already. Dual Commander, thank you for pointing that out. Crick, I think, is just a little too high. Maybe not necessarily what we're going for. Vona's Hunger is a sick card and is definitely in the list. But let's go ahead and look through the rest of these. So as additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Eden Alive, exile target creature. We kind of want them to sacrifice them in this instance. Like, again, Deadly Rollick feels like an odd inclusion. I might even take it out because I really do want to take the creatures. I don't want to exile them. It's weird that Deadly Rollick are only free spell. It feels like it's not at home here, but okay, so sacrifice creature, put any number of maggot tokens equal to the sacrifice creature's power. What? Why is it 3 CMC? Damn, but X01 black insect creature tokens were access to sacrifice creature's power. That's kind of cool at instant speed. As it also costs to cast this, you may reveal it. Nope. Sacrifice all permanents. Discard your hand. Target player loses 5 life. Seems good to me. Don't want that. Draw cards equal to the converted mana cost of sacrifice permanent. Oh, shit. Morbid Curiosity. Kind of like that. This is a cool one, though. This is another reanimate spell. So as additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, then return another creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I wish it was in 4 CMC, and I think this is past the point of no return. Like, we're not going to go much further down here. Someone did mention this earlier, and I'll look at it with you guys. This is an oldie, and one that's never played, but it's rather cool. So you gain control of target non-black, non-artifact creature by sacrificing a creature and paying 4. Again, oldie, really interesting art. It's just never used because of its CMC, unfortunately. Elsewise, it's actually quite cool. I agree with you there. As additional cost, sacrifice X creatures, destroy X creatures. Again, more of these need to be instant speed. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why this removal's all at sorcery. Kind of killing me. But we can do Dismember as well. And then we can also do, I don't know if Snuff Out makes its way in, but Snuff Out is another free spell we can kind of leverage. And then there's also, gosh, it was just on my mind. We'll do Snuff Out. Again, I don't know if this is really going ad nauseum, but That's fine. I was going to do Tragic Slip, but I need to look at the effect on Tragic Slip again. If a creature died this turn, that's really good at just removing things, ain't it? If a creature died this turn, I think creatures will die often. So Tragic Slip is really good at removing anything. I know it seems like an odd include, but it's a really good way to remove some threats. Obviously, we're also probably going to add Feed the Swarm and some oddities. There's really not much that stops this list as it stands. There's really not much that hurts our deck in this instance. But do note that artifacts, enchantments, we don't really have great ways to deal with those. So that's we have a blasting station in here. That might be the best thing, sadly. And obviously, blast zone, excuse me. And obviously you can add something like a powder keg or a ratchet bomb. We're not going down that rabbit hole. Trent says, do you want a Yawgmoth here? He sacks bodies and kills others while drawing cards. I think we've got like a lot going for the list already. That Yawgmoth is a really good utility, and it might be one of the more favorable ones. So I will add it to the side, but we're speaking, of course, of Thran Physician, because we're able to leverage the bodies we get to put -1 counters, draw cards. Obviously, functionally, that's the best utility here. It also happens to be a 2/4, so it functions very well with our setup. I'll state that it's fine. I feel like as our main reanimate target, we're probably going to go for Shieldred, and we'll probably, if we see Yawgmoth, hardcast Yawgmoth. I don't know if we necessarily go for Yawgmoth constantly, right? I don't think Yawgmoth is going to be a primary reanimate target. And a lot of our reanimate targets are actually legendary. Like the ones that we would want to pull back from the grave. Like Rankle, mentioned earlier, Shieldred, Razaketh, obviously. So, unfortunately, we've only got the one Entomb. We could also obviously do like a Buried Alive. Oh, Buried Alive with a Victimize, right? Is Victimize the one? Choose 2 target cards in your graveyard, sacrifice a creature. If you do, return those cards to the battlefield's tapped. That's really good. Obviously, 3 CMC is a little high, but the simple oh my god, is there a really extended Victimize? Cool. I like looking at the art. Oh shit, you want to smack around Zansha really quick? This is good in this list because with a Buried Alive pile, we're going to have bodies to get rid of, and we need to do something to leverage them. Yes, do I wish it was instant speed? I wish everything was instant speed, but that's really reserved for blue. So we're just going to add Victimize and then cross our fingers, right? I think we still need to add a fast mana suite. We've added Dark Ritual Sacrifice, Culling the Weak, Cabal Ritual, but we obviously need to add cards like Mana Crypts, Mana Vaults, Soul Ring, Chrome Mox, Mox Diamonds. Hold up. It's coming to me. Lotus Petal. Jeweled Lotus. Jeweled Amulet? Jeweled Amulet? You don't want Jeweled Amulet. You don't want Jeweled Amulet. I know you. You don't want Jeweled Amulet. I think we touched on the major ones there. We can do an Arcane Signet because it's always nice having more black mana. I don't know how many 2 CMC rocks I actually want to include here. They're not direly important to us, if I'm being perfectly frank with you. And we don't necessarily have a combo baked into this deck yet. I just want you to know, it looks like we're really thriving on going to Beat Street, having the only creatures. And that's actually okay, right? That's not absurd. Oh my god, we're at 100 cards. I'm going to add Tome of Legends because I'm just that maniacal. And I'm also going to add... I don't think we have enough artifacts to warn a Mox Opal. Mox Amber it's 4 CMC. Mox Amber is probably going to be offline for the most part, but Mox Amber is reliant on Planeswalkers or Legendaries, right? So it doesn't necessarily need to be your commander. Yeah, we'll add Mox Amber. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows with Mox Amber? Why it's not letting us add it. Okay. And let me... Lag of the Dead. We have Lake of the Dead in the list already. Victimize is in. How about Razaketh? We do have Razaketh in the list as well. Walking Atlas. Zansha. There's a Rakdos. A Sildevia Adnate. Dark Ritual in the deck. Dark Ritual is always in the deck, good sir. Or ma'am. Carter. I don't know. Carter. Yeah, Dark Ritual is always going to be in. Generally speaking. We don't have... Necropotence, which is yeah, you add Necropotence. Any other draw utilities? We're going to lose a lot of life when Dark Tutelage and Dark Confident flip over cards. It's going to be very bad. I almost feel like we need the Sensei's Divining Top just to make sure that we're not, murdering ourselves with the high CMC spells in here. And let's just go ahead and take a gander at the list as a whole. And obviously, guys, please let me know if there's any good kill spell that we missed. And I mean mass negative effects, whether it be a set number and or X in that value, let me know. We went over a few and we've graded a few. I think we have the best of the best hopefully in here, but I would love to know your thoughts on the removal. And obviously, if you guys want to test this list with me, the best way to do so is just to follow the link in the description, as it will lead you right here. So I almost feel like if we're going to do the smokestacks thing, oh my God. We need, if I'm going to do smokestacks, which is where I'm sort of gravitating with this, like I feel like this should be a smokestacks list. Call me crazy. We need Imp's Mischief. We need, there's really not great black interaction and instant speed. I hate to say it. Don't say the thing that counters creatures and you lose life. We don't need that. But we do need an Ophiomancer, because this is a great way to have protection and swing along a ding dong. And we can also do with a Bitter Blossom. Like if we're actually going the route of smokestacks, which is what I kind of want to do for this list as a main idea strategy, then I'm going to want to have those token generators, at least those two. And there are obviously more, but we can probably rest on those. And those are going to leverage all of our, as additional cost sacrifice things too, because we want those bodies just anyways. So I like having those. I think if we're going to add a combo, it really makes the most sense for it to be a zombie-based combo, at least with our girl. But we don't have any zombies and we're not generating zombies is the real trick of it. There's really no great combo that meshes well with this list. I feel like it's almost all in on smoke stacksing, maybe light stacksing, mass removal. Your main threats in a lot of instances, and the issue with this list, if you're going to play it a competitive setting, or we're going to try to play this in competitive setting, if it doesn't actually have a way to close out the game on turn with some form of infinite line of play, you need to make certain that what you're doing is having an impact on the game, and also you also need to make sure that you have ways of interacting off turn so that you can help with the general gameplay, right? Because destroying all creatures isn't going to affect everyone's plan. And if we could find a way, I don't know if black has it, but we need like an Elish Norn for black. Is there like a permanent Elish Norn for black? I think there are. Let me know what those are, because we do want to stifle anyone from generating a board state, but this doesn't stop like a Thassa's Oracle from dropping and still winning. Obviously, that's a big threat. Storm packages are still a big threat because we're not really affecting them in any meaningful way. We need to hit this very early, and it's not like our commander gets us there any bit earlier. So smokestacks might be eliminated, and we just generally go for a build that we can Razaketh out, which would be a Grave Crawler with a way to make mana and some zombie. It's like that. Or we can do something with Acerak and infinite mana and mono black. A little tricky to do, but there's stuff we can do. And now, mind you, someone was mentioning Crick earlier. We are on Heartless Summoning, so it wouldn't be completely out of line to say Acerak Heartless Summoning Crick, right? You obviously are losing life as you're doing this. We need to find a way to mitigate that. But if we've got Razaketh and like 5 creatures, we've got a way to do that. Okay, I'm going to turn to you guys and we can look at what we need to remove. You forgot Grizzlebrand. No, I didn't. I wish I could, though. You know what? It seems like Weatherboon? No, Ascendant Evikar is Black Norn. Yes. It's like -1 instead, right? So it's not good enough, unfortunately, but I agree. This is the equivalent. There's a few enchantments, lower stats, permanents. Yes, Beazle Bubster. Let me know if you can recall them. But let's go ahead and take a look at the list as it stands and what we want to incorporate. So bearing in mind, if Gisa is the main strategy here, the -3 is like the core piece of removal because it's going to hit pretty much everything in most cases. Obviously, it's not going to hit. I think Kess has 4 defense. I think Crom has 4 defense. Like, there's certain things we're not going to hit commander-wise, but we're good for the most part. So Yenne's is great. Massacre can be free, so we like Massacre. Drown in Sorrow is just not good enough, sadly. Toxic Deluge is fine. Victimize is great. Buried Alive is great. Buried Alive is a way to set up the Victimize pile. I say pile. We're not necessarily... We don't have a Buried Alive pile here. If we wanted to do like a Necrotic Ooze line of play, it would be easy to slip in, but there's no overlap with Necrotic Ooze in this list outside of the fact that we could bury Razaketh and Necrotic Ooze, and then, you know, if one dies, then Necrotic Ooze can take Razaketh's ability. Like, I don't know. That would be interesting. If that made sense. Logicking this in my head, I'm not sure I'm communicating it well. Unmarked Grave feels okay here. Like, most of the things we care about are legendary, and we also don't have a way to like haste enable anything. It wouldn't be bad to just have Lightning Greaves in the deck, and maybe that's something we can consider, but probably not necessary. Tutor, yep, Feed the Swarm, removal, Mass Sacrifice, cool, Mass Sacrifice, cool. Unmarked Grave, again, I'm a little iffy on the Grave, and I think I could just take that out as well. Mass Sacrifice, cool. Tutor, this is good for reanimate targets that are stuck in your hand. Cabal Therapy, just name yourself. Also, early game, you're going to name your opponent, especially if they do a top tech tutor that reveals what they have. Cabal Therapy is very good at just eliminating that threat. This would be a Sylvan tutor in some instances. But if you know what they're tutoring for, if you know the general game plan of said list, you're like, oh, it's Catalyst is Ad Nauseam. You generally say Ad Nauseam and hit the Ad Nauseam or whatever core card you can think of. But Cabal Therapy is also doubly good, as I mentioned earlier, for discarding your own thing and then reanimating that thing. Planeswalkers, I think Lily Dreadhorde is a little high. The reason I like this one is because you can hand pick the creatures that you want to be sacrificed at a certain point with all the removal we have. That this one's very good. And each player discarding a card is not the end of the world. In most cases, it's not the end of the world for you. I do agree that the draw off of this Lily is quite good, but I think it's 6 CMC is just a little high. It's maybe just a little too high. Each player sacrificing 2 creatures also really good. I'm going to reserve this for later. I think that she may have a spot in the list, but we do want to leave mana open because we do have some forms of interaction here. I think Deadly Rollick, again, exiling target creature just generally hurts. Can you think of a creature that you need to exile on the spot that's really that damning? Right? I mean, really, think about it. Like, how many creatures actually went on the spot? I mean, in the YouTube short that just went up today, if you haven't watched it, check it out. Boonweaver. Right, exiling that makes sense, but again, generally the kill creature or the creature that does the most damage in cEDH is Thassa's Oracle, and it doesn't matter if you exile that. Obviously, something like someone's Dockside is kind of important. Like, that's relevant if they keep reanimating or some nonsense. That's relevant, but I think that we can probably escape using Deadly Rollick. I know it's free. I know it's good, but I'd rather not. Over what we have elsewise so far as removing things. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker with the highest converted mana cost among creatures or planeswalkers they control. It's nice because it's easy to do at 2 generic and 1 black. Same thing with Vonus Hunger. I like Vonus Hunger. We should hopefully hit the Ascendancy very early. Dismember is good, single target removal. There is one spell I'm iffy on. I think it's Tragic Slip. While I believe we'll hit Morbid more oftentimes than not, I'm not entirely certain that spot removal is necessary. Let's just look at what we have. We need to get rid of 3 more things. Maybe we keep Tragic Slip. The rest of these are very good, though. Like Lily's Triumph, good. Plumb the Forbidden, good. Plunge into Darkness, good. This is just a good dig spell. Goryo's Vengeance, again, because a majority of our stuff is legendary, it's quite good at instant speed. Although you still have things like Shallow Grave that would just hit anything. And generally speaking, this is sort of the go-to card so far as top Grave reanimation is concerned. I don't know. It seems okay. We could do one over the other. I have Goryo's Vengeance in the list. It's a little gimmicky in the sense that it only hits legendaries, but you could splice it. How about that? They also gain haste. Now, I think Shallow Grave also functionally gives them haste, but I'm trying to think if any of these really care about having haste. Oh, you know what's nicer though? Wasn't there a new reanimate spell that gives them a -1/-1 counter? Maybe we just use that instead. I'm going to take Goryo's Vengeance out for now. I want there to be a little bit more permanence with these effects. Like, again, we don't have a Razaketh line set up. This is more or less for just making our opponents suffer. Everything else here seems good, though. We want the redirect here. Draw 2 cards, make a treasure. I still like Deadly Dispute. I think it falls in line with what we're trying to do here. I think the rest of these are fine. Yeah, the rest of these are fine. Quest for the Gravelord's a little too gimmicky, but cool. Between the Abyss and Tainted Ether, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, this is still quite good. The Abyss. Now, at a certain point, that this is just going to eat us alive, but it does function very well with what we're trying to do, so we'll keep it. Contamination's good. And again, we don't have good ways to remove the Abyss. You know what? Fuck the Abyss. Only because it's so expensive, and I know a lot of us aren't going to be able to play with it. A lot of us sort of maintain the idea that we shouldn't play with proxies. So for those of you out there that don't want to play with proxies, fuck the Abyss. You don't need to own that card at $1,700. I'm super iffy on it. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit behind with your comments. So let me just go through them really quick. We have Yawgmoth. Feed the Swarm's in there. I don't have Blightsteel. Persist is the one. Thank you. It's it literally does what you would think it would do. Oh my god, non-legendary creature. I remember why I hated this. Yeah, that. Return target non-legendary creature card. You know what would actually be good? There's one where it's like picking a rat out of the graveyard, the art. It lets everyone return a creature, but letting them return the creature means it's another time you can kill that creature. God, what is it called? Each return graveyard battlefield. There's a couple that do this effect, but namely, looking for the art. Is there new art? Hold up. It's 2 CMC. Oh no. Yeah, return graveyard battlefield. Each graveyard battlefield. It's gonna do it. It's gonna do it. Right there. Exhume. Each player puts a creature card from their graveyard onto the battlefield. This is an instance where Exhume is good because it means there's another opportunity for to use that creature. That I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Yeah. We'll add Exhume really quick, and then I kind of want to continue this. Yes, thank you. Thank you to all the... I'm glad you guys are actually tuned in with what's going on. Thank you for that. Yes, Exhume. Exhume. I think Exhume makes sense here. And call me crazy. You generally don't want to give value to your opponents, but in this instance, we get to borrow that value. So it's not the end of the world. Particularly if we have like Innocent Blood in our hand and we can ship it and land it. Oh, yes. And maybe because our kill spells are so important, it would behoove us to put in Boseiju. I'm gonna add Boseiju. I'm gonna add Boseiju, and I'm also gonna add Expedition Map, because I think Expedition Map's gonna find a lot of utility with our land base here, coupled with the fact that I think Boseiju is pretty important here for just shipping our spells and making sure they land. Especially in mono black, like again, we don't have great ways to cause our opponents to stop countering us. So maybe Boseiju makes sense. Again, I don't like slow lands. I generally don't pack any in my list, but Boseiju making the next instant or sorcery spell you cast uncounterable is quite good. And again, you know, grabbing with Expedition Map, Lake of the Dead, or even if you have Lake of the Dead out, grabbing your Urborg. There's a lot of good plays with that. There's no need for Vault of the Whispers, Vault of Whispers, excuse me. We talked about it at the beginning of this video, but we did not go the route I was contemplating initially, so we're fine there. We need to remove one more card, and to be honest, I don't know if this is the ultimate setup for this list, but it is going the right direction. Contamination's great, Dark Tutelage is great. Dark Tutelage, it's questionable with the amount of high CMC things we have, but I still like Dark Tutelage quite a bit. Meathook Massacre, cool. Heartless Summoning, and it's in the list because we have a lot of high CMC creatures, but we don't really have a line of play for Heartless Summoning right now. So I don't know if Heartless Summoning sticks. Blood Funnel is also really dope because it makes all of our non-creature spells cost 2 less, but let's just see how much that helps us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, technically anything with generic, I'm just trying to see what 2 or more generic costed spells does it actually help with. Quite a bit, actually, Blood Funnel. Quite a bit. Again, though, we really need to get the ball rolling first on the retrieving things with Gisa before Blood Funnel is appropriate, but I still like it. I will keep Blood Funnel and Heartless Summoning. Again, I'm not sure both stick, but I do like it. Dark Ritual and Tomb Exhume. Ooh. Has Lethal Vapors been mentioned? It could probably be situationally really work here. This is an interesting utility, but we'll look at Lethal Vapors together. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, destroy it, right? So destroy Lethal Vapors, you skip your next turn. Any player may activate this ability. So, you know, clearly your opponents aren't going to want to... You don't leverage the only creatures you're really going to benefit off of are the ones that have ETBs, right? So you're really wiping the board from anyone's use, and you don't necessarily want to skip your turn. So I'm super iffy on Lethal Vapors. I can see why you like it, though. Homeward Path can let you keep your decayed creatures by giving them back to your opponents in response to the trigger. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gisa Glorious Resurrect drawn to the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed. A creature with Decayed can't block. When it attacks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. Homeward Path's been mentioned a few times. Are we absolutely certain on the ruling here? Because if we read Homeward Path, it states each player gains control of all creatures they own. So you're stating that you give them the creature, they control it again, it dies, and then Gisa retrieves it again? Is that what we're saying? Right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that logic's right. Someone mentioned it earlier, and it slipped my mind. But yeah, while that delayed triggers on the stack, that does make sense. Even more reason for Expedition Map. Let me just state that. And we'll see about cutting our lands again. I think maybe 30 lands makes sense because of how high CMC this curve is. How do we look at the curve again? Right there. There's a couple things on this curve that are just a little higher. So maybe having 30 lands makes sense, but... yeah, you're right. That's really cool. It's almost in the same fashion like having the Sundial Infinite. You get to keep them. A Homeward Path is clearly a good way. It's pretty much exactly the same because when you tap Homeward Path, you lose one generic in this activation, but you're also spending one generic for Sundial Infinite. So they're both very good equivalents to have. Homeward Path being a land is really great though. It's just far more protected. But that makes sense. Yeah. Unless this is wrong, and someone can correct us, but that makes total sense. I think that we leave things the way they are. I'm not sure how vital Witch's Cottage is at this point either. And again, we need to cut one more card. I think the card we're going to cut is... We have a lot of ways to do the same thing. So my thing is... I would rather get rid of the Nightmare Shepherd than anything else here. Demon's Disciple. It just enters the battlefield. Everyone sacrifices. Good blocker. Good body. These are all fine. Chrome Mox, all these make sense. All of these make sense. All these make sense. All of this makes sense. Except for maybe the Dermotaxi. It's a little bit of a gimmick, but I like it, so we'll run it. And that's it. I think we're good to try this out, at least. The average CMC is 2.19, 2.17 now. That's actually pretty high, believe it or not. Not in the sense that we have a lot on the top end, like 4s and 3s are really painful with the Dark Confidant and the Dark Tutelage, but obviously hitting a 7 and 8 is really rough as well. And a lot of more proactive lists are still running things like Peer into the Abyss as well, so it's painful when you ad nauseum, but we're not trying to ad nause here, so it's not as huge an issue for us. But I do try to keep the curve low, like under 2 is generally what you see in a cEDH setting, pending the list, obviously. Something like my Belby list has a huge CMC average. But let's try this out. I'm very, very interested in seeing how this functions. I think it's going to be decent. I feel like Jet Medallion I'm still a little iffy on as well. These cost reducers are nice. This hand is not very nice, though. I don't think we want this. And we could probably do with a few more target player discards a thing. I think that would actually make some sense. We'll keep this hand. It seems okay. Obviously, getting Gisa down is a priority, but we don't have a way to remove anything yet. And because we can play Gisa, but we know factually that we don't have a way to really leverage Gisa. So I feel like I should just get this down. Very bad starting play, by the way. This is decent in the fact that someone might kill another person's creature, but I feel like Gisa would be the target if it meant giving the Gisa player a creature before. I mean, on turn 1, that just makes the most sense. But we'll do this instead, and we'll go here. We now will go for Gisa, right? Cool. Got a 4/4. If any creature dies, whatever. Probably not. We need to do that for them. We have Entomb and Exhume. Well, we don't have any great ways to get rid of those creatures. So what we're going to do is do the Dothy Voidwalker. And we have 2 replacement effects on the field, right? So if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it. This requires that it be from the battlefield to the graveyard. This is from anywhere. So we'll eat up the creatures either way. But this is generally going to be reserved for instants and sorceries we want to cast. But yeah, that's dope. I love having Dothy on the battlefield. Again, we're sort of shy of doing anything with this, but we're going to make sure we get that Exhume to go off at least, right? Which I'm hopeful for. Okay, we can't really see any more lands. Don't want to see any more lands. We're going to swing. We have a lot of mass sacrifice, a lot of removal, so the fact that we're not seeing any is just the luck of the draw here. We'll hold now. The best thing we can do is steal someone's value piece with this, but if it was a creature, it was exiled. And entomb, we can entomb one of our creatures like Razaketh. I don't know. At this point, I need to look at our creature base because I'm thinking what would be the best thing to entomb for our own sake. And honestly, I will want to do that at sorcery speed. I don't want this temporarily. Actually, Shieldred would be kind of cool to do on turn, right? Before we pass. Right? It's only instants and sorceries that are protected. So odds are likely that Shieldred will get nixed. But if we do this on turn, let's just get this out of the way. Because this is the general game plan, right? We want something like this. We'll do Shieldred in the graveyard, but we'll also do boop, boop, Boseiju, lose some life, Exhume. Now, what's nice about this scenario is that when we bring Shieldred back, this will occur. Someone can remove Shieldred, but if we're giving them creatures that died, we will get those creatures ultimately if Gisa remains. And at the beginning of your upkeep, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Creature card from your graveyard to your hand. There's none right now, but that's pretty much what we want. So we can say some creatures died here. And I don't know what those creatures are, but we got them. Let's just say we got 2 creatures out of this equation. That seems to make sense for me. But they'll come to us at the beginning of our upkeep, right? I'm just prepping them now. There's really nothing else for us to do on this turn. We need to shuffle for the Entomb, and we can take our turn. There's Dark Confidant. And what's nice is we had the Homeward Path in our pocket here. So we've actually got a really decent setup here. This is a little bit slower. Dothy Voidwalker's probably got some utilities under it at this point. And what's nice is that you can choose an exile card an opponent owns, and you may play it without paying its mana cost. So if we have like a countermeasure, we can run the countermeasure. Dothy Voidwalker's not going to attack at this point. If it has decent utilities under it, it's just going to stay there. That's just a supreme utility. And then now we're going to bank on Homeward Path, getting those creatures back and doing the thing that we were discussing earlier. We've got a lot of damage on board and likely want to just run this out at least, and just be contented with this, right? So as they were stating earlier, everyone that mentioned Homeward Path, and thank you for bringing it up. I think it makes a lot of sense with Gisa. At the beginning of blah, 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 they gain Decayed. So when it attacks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. Oh man, you know what Expedition map would be really sweet with? Urborg, to make her swamp walk all the time. So with that trigger on the stack at the end of combat, sacrifice this creature, we'll go ahead and give our opponents the creatures. Now that they control them, when they die, exile them, they come back. So this makes perfect sense. I like this a lot. And they will come back at the beginning of our upkeep. I'm just putting them off to the side. Okay, so we've got mana to do stuff. We've got the Dark Confidant. We'll Dark Confidant, Plumb the Forbidden, which is sweet. Ooh. Well, we don't really get them back, do we? That's okay. Take our turn. Damn, all the lands. Okay, so obviously we're just relying on damage in this build, and I think for the last 30 minutes we can discuss with each other what kind of combos make sense with this list. But I do like playing this out. This is actually really fun. I don't know. This seems like a really interesting list so far as its function is concerned. I think at best, this would be, with the way this is generally running, it would probably make sense to use this for the Demonic Tutor or whatever to get our smokestacks and just get going on this, you know, plan of ours. It wouldn't hurt to get a contamination on the battlefield either. But we've got Plumb the Forbidden. I want more creatures to sacrifice before I Plumb. But I think because we've got a really nice setup here, I think the general game plan should be to run the board and just damage people out. And provided we're not able to win, we've got the most bodies in most instances if we're leveraging our utilities to get our mass destruction, mass sacrifice kind of effects, right? So let's just discuss potential combos that can go into Gisa the Glorious. I think it would probably be important to at least have one. There's nothing that really overlaps with this strategy, though, is the big issue. And we're not running too much by way of removal because nothing really affects this strategy. It's just getting Gisa down, killing a lot of things. And the only thing that really affects that is maybe a Dranic Magistrate. And we're running all the cards to kill a lot of we didn't see any of them there. But we're running all the cards to kill a lot of things. So it's not like a huge... There aren't that many stacks threats, so I'm not really running that much removal. But bearing in mind, if we do run a strategy that cares about our graveyard outside of a Reanimate, we're going to need removal for that. And we don't really have good removal in mono black. So we're really going to need to get these things on the field quicker. The only things that we have, like to remove, obviously the enchantments of the world, is Feed the Swarm for artifacts. It's an actual thing we can do because we're getting bodies, but destroy target artifacts, activate only during your upkeep and only once each turn. This is a reserve list card that is kind of good in a mono black list that needs removal. Otherwise, again, the other one to go for is a Ratchet Bomb or just our Blast Zone off of Expedition map, right? So you can start hitting those non-land permanents with a converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters. This is a decent way, but it's also just a good way to remove creatures. Maybe Ratchet Bomb makes sense in the list. But let's go ahead and discuss lines of play here. I think as a Smokestacks list, this can be very successful. And Smokestacks is very boring to illustrate because the game plan isn't that exciting to see. But for us, we're removing and stealing creatures constantly, right? So we're removing one set of permanents from our opponents. And then it's up to them to have the hand size or have the utilities or be able to make plays to keep up with Smokestacks. And if our deck is engineered to rely on Smokestacks, right? Like we've got the things that generate tokens, we've got the things that steal creatures, Gisa, then this is actually quite good. It's just going to be a very slow build that will ultimately steamroll everyone with combat damage. That's fine. But the combo that sort of layers with this list that I would want to do is maybe relying on Crick of the World. Like, we were mentioning Crick earlier, and there could be a Reanimate line of play with Crick, and perhaps it would be a Razakath play to get Crick. We can look at Crick really quick, and we're going to use this one because this one looks dope. But I'm going to tune in with you guys to see how you're doing. Obviously, let me know what you would like to see combo-wise incorporated, and we can discuss that. But, hello, Mosker. Is Opposition Agent worth playing? Yeah, it's totally worth playing. I just didn't get around to playing it. I wasn't trying to run any stacks, but we could definitely play Opposition Agent if you want. J Boom says, what is up? Not much, J Boom. Not much. If you haven't been following along, we're just making Gisa the Glorious right now. We're making her as glorious as possible. But we're going to add... We can add Opposition Agent if you want. We were holding mana for a minute there, and it seems like this list is probably going to hold mana, so Opposition Agent is fine. I think it's a threat that is going to need answering, so removal will go that way. Archon of Cruelty. This is the new one. It's a dragon riding dude, right? Yeah. Enters the battlefield or attacks. Target opponent sacrifices creature or planeswalker. Discards a card, loses 3 life, you gain a life, draw. So, of all of our Reanimate targets, I think Archon of Cruelty is sort of the bottom of the barrel. No offense to Archon of Cruelty. But... Acerak? Acerak. Rarak. When Acerak enters the battlefield, if you haven't completed a Tomb of Annihilation, blip. So, If Acererak was only Phyrexian mana, are we able to win the game? Are we able to win the game? Is there enough life gain in these dungeons to make this possible? Not really. Gain 1 life? Nah, nope. So one of my thoughts was that Crick, Heartless summoning Acererak would be a cool line of play, and you just spend life to do that. Bearing in mind that you need to counteract that, which you could do with the Aetherflux Reservoir, but if you're going to do that, you should probably just run an Aetherflux Reservoir line instead, right? The life gain from this feels kind of silly off of Acererak, because you're just going to kill things anyways. Triskelion maybe is a combo. Yeah. Acererak combo is kind of cool. Yeah, J-Boom, it feels kind of cool. My main qualm with that is the fact that it's really piling on a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily want in this list. Things that don't necessarily apply to this list. I think that there's an Aetherflux line here, though. We can always... Oh, God, that really sucks. If we do like a Professor Onyx, I'm trying to think of the easiest A plus B things we can do. But if we added Professor Onyx, we can add in Chain of Smog. And whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Like, that's an A plus B combo, but it is rather expensive, right? So it's 6 CMC for Professor Onyx. And then if you guys don't know Chain of Smog, it's sort of the big to-do when Strixhaven got released. It's 2 CMC sorcery that lets us discard our hand. It seems a little vicious. It is kind of vicious, but it does work in tandem with this well. Now, if we did something like this, you know, Yawgmoth's will want to be in the list, because if we fail, we need to do it again, right? We need to do it again. So, iffy on that as well. Definitely clunky, sadly. Yes, someone's mentioning Triskelion. I think because we run Buried Alive, there is a good case for... There's a good case for at least 1 Necrotic Ooze line, and I'm not entirely certain. I don't know if I'm super high on doing a Walking Ballista Triskelion Phyrexian Devourer, because that does require that we're generating a lot of CMC off the top of our deck. But noting that our list is trying to just cut through with a lot of damage and eliminate the board, if we're doing that and doing it successfully, just doing a lot of damage to each player, then we should be able to kill the board with Phyrexian Devourer, Triskelion, or Walking Ballista, as well as Necrotic Ooze. And if you guys don't know how that works, when Necrotic Ooze is on the battlefield, it has obviously Triskelion's ability, but Phyrexian Devourer allows us to peel cards at the top of our list and put that many +1/+1 counters worth of CMC onto Necrotic Ooze in this instance. So we could potentially do that. I'm more for that than I am Chain of Smog, because there's more support for that in these colors, which kind of makes me think we should put Unmarked Grave back in here. But Triskelion by itself is right? We don't care. And Phyrexian Devourer is super iffy. Like, we really don't care. And the only other thing I can think of is like Asmodeus, right? Like, we've got the Asmodeus line of play with Scourge Familiar, and at least Scourge Familiar has the benefit of generating black mana. And Asmodeus, this lets us draw our deck, but is drawing our deck really functionally winning us the game? Not necessarily. So I guess we do go for the Trisket line of play. Hate to say it. But this is a major, major backup plan to what is obviously just doing damage. Unfortunately, again, Mono Black doesn't really have too many great A plus B combos to reliably work on. At least with this particular strategy, things that are going to play in tandem or play along with what we're trying to do here. But we could add this for now, and I want to add in at least one more line, but there's no real great reanimate strategy here outside of just setting up things with Razaketh, which should hopefully get us... Razaketh is really key here, right? It's one going to offer us protection in the form of, like, if we have all the creatures, we're doing it right, we entomb and exhume, we entomb, we reanimate, whatever. Razaketh, provided we have enough life, we should be able to set up the buried line as well as gain pieces of protection. So insofar as, like, what protective pieces we can roll with. A Conqueror's Flail is very expensive, but we want to do this with as few play as possible. So in most instances, it could be grabbing like a defense grid, or it could just be grabbing our Imp's Mischief and then going for Buried Alive, Reanimate. And it's 3 cards. We need at least 3 creatures. And we should be able to grab more creatures than that. So we'll have more creatures to sacrifice for mana and such to make sure we can do that. But again, unfortunately, there's not that much to stave off people from just countering or killing or exiling, eliminating our lines of play. But I think just that is probably good. Rolling with that as a backup to a Smokestacks plan, or just a way to finish off a Smokestacks plan if the game is going on too long, makes sense. Let's go ahead and set that up just with our board here. But let's see. I don't know what to cut that I don't really love. Victimize is probably the thing I like most. So like if we do a Buried Alive pile, if we do Buried Alive, it almost feels absolutely necessary to go for Necrotic Ooze, which makes me feel like Victimize is less important now. Because if we're going to go for a Buried Alive, then we need to go for the combo. Like this is strictly for the combo now, sadly. That's sort of the nature of the game. So we can get rid of that. All the rest of these make total sense to me, right? Cabal Therapy is still very good at setting up our Reanimate. Liliana is fine. I think for generic and double black, she's good enough. She fits into the good enough department. Although the fact that it's only single targeting with a sacrifice a creature makes me super iffy on her. Even though it shuts off Liliana's Triumph from ever making people discard cards, that's just fine, and this is what it has to be. Everything else seems good here. We've got all the utilities we want to roll with for utilizing other people's creatures. There's only so much I'm iffy on here. Like the Deadly Dispute is questionable, and then again, Soul Shattering is the weaker link of all of these, but another mass removal spell, and one I kind of want to keep. Still has a lot of swamps. Are there different lands that could help? Volrath Stronghold. Not necessarily. There is a high swamp count here, but it's kind of important we have those swamps down. Because one of the ways we can ramp out in an instance where we're missing mana to make great plays with Razaketh would be to grab like Lake of the Dead from our list off of a creature sack and then sacking swamps. So it's important we have that high count, but we also need black for a lot, so it's not bad that that's there. And understanding that we have Tomb of Yawgmoth, sure, but it's still good to have swamps around. There aren't that many other lands utility-wise that I would want to roll with, but if there's some utility lands you'd like to include, you can certainly cut swamps for them. I think that the land count is good, though, at 29 as well. There was an artifact I was thinking about cutting, right, with Jet Medallion. And obviously there's a few quirky cards in here. I think that Blood Funnel and Heartless Summoning can probably come out. And I think we'll keep the Jet Medallion and we'll reintroduce... What was it? What was I talking about? There was a card I wanted to reintroduce. Unmarked Grave. I think that we should just roll with Yawgmoth's Will and then call it a day. Because we'll need a backup if it's a Smokestacks build with one combo and no backup combo. This is the backup combo, Yawgmoth's Will. And it could also just be leveraging a Praetor's Grasp to take a potential combo card, but this seems the appropriate route. Bone Shards is too slow at sorcery speed as a one-time sack. I think it's just a little too slow, and the deck is kind of crammed with a lot of utilities that need to be here, sadly. But let's try this again. Let's try to set this up, see what the perfect Gisa hand looks like. We're not seeing any of our fast mana. There we go. Is this good? It's okay, right? We're not doing a lot quickly here, and unfortunately our only real impact or major impact with this Gisa build is destroying creatures. Would it be advisable to adding in some elements of stacks? Probably because this is a slower list, but I think this is fine for demonstrative purposes. So let's just continue with this. Okay, so we've got this and this, and I know that this can equal Buried Alive, and I know that this can be Necrotic Ooze. So we'll probably want to hold on to them. We'll cast the Lotus Petal and go from there. Okay, cool. Mox Diamond was actually useful here. So we'll do this for the diamond. Now, bearing in mind, like everything I just said, because Innocent Blood, we would need to sacrifice Gisa in this equation. It's not quite good in this instance. So part of me kind of wants to hold to make this dream come true instead, because this is going to generate 5. I think it makes more sense, sadly, just to go for the line of play with the Buried Alive. So we'll do the Demonic Tutor. Hopefully no one's concerned about us. We'll do Buried Alive. Shuffle. Draw. Homeward Path. Okay. Gisa secured. And in this instance, we're just going to demonstrate a turn 3 win with the thing I'm talking about. Do I have the mana for it? I think I do. Let's go ahead and just do this. And this is, again, assuming that no one's got anything for us. If you've never seen this play out, we'll do Buried Alive. We'll sacrifice this. Tap here. And then we'll also do the Homeward Path. But we're going to Bury It Alive, Necrotic Ooze. We're going to Bury It Alive, a Phyrexian Devourer, and we'll Bury It Alive, Triskelion. And then we'll do one more test game live, and I can talk through everything with you guys, obviously, and you can let me know your thoughts on the list, and we can modify this as we like in the future. But when we Bury It Alive this, we'll animate the Necrotic Ooze, who will get like a -1 to his attack, but that's neither here nor there, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's +1/+1, excuse me. But it's largely irrelevant because we're not concerned about the status of our creature. And it would be untap. It doesn't untap. That's also fine. Okay. So with this setup, these two are still in our graveyard. We're going to exile the top of our library, remove +1/+1 counters, and kill the board. Now, the thing is, we haven't actually succeeded at doing any damage, right? So it's really just where everyone's at after their fetches, after their shocks, after any sort of combat that might have occurred. And then we'll start exiling. So 3, 6, 8. You see where this is going. 11, 12. I won't go through all the math. 13, 16. Did I do the math wrong? 16, 23, 26, 29. And we'll do this, keep doing this until we hit 40 on each player. Now, we need to look at the average CMC of the list to make sure that we can actually add up to, if it had to be, 120. Right? If everyone's life was at 40, we need to do 120. Can our list get there by itself? That's the real big to-do here. And I think it can, but I don't know the math offhand. So you would need to look at that to see if it was logical to even go for this right now, even if you could ship it and successfully do it. But let's go ahead and just try a general smokestacksy kind of thing with the hand like this. So let's go ahead and do this. Do this. Do this. This isn't a great hand. We really want one more land. It's a good hand, don't get me wrong. But we really want to put down this Dark Confidant. We really, really do. And between these two... Yeah. So next turn really looks like us top decking, right? We could do right now just this and this. I'm trying to see what I want to exile to the Chrome Mox, and you can tell me what you think would be best in this situation. But next turn, I'm looking to put down Gisa. Plaguecrafter is going to give me my opponent's creatures on turn 3, right? But Rankle is quite good. Rankle is quite good. Just a little high CMC, and I know for a fact that I can't do Rankle without a Dark Ritual in this instance. Plaguecrafter is more immediately playable, so part of me wants to keep the Plaguecrafter in my hand, despite the fact that Rankle does more and is getting in for damage. I'm going to go against my better judgment and keep Rankle because I want to play Rankle, and then we'll stop here. Okay, so we are going to reveal per turn, Swamp, thank God, and we'll put the snow-covered Swamp into play. Now in this instance, so we tap here, we've got 3, that's Gisa right there, and then we have 2 lands left. We really do want to get these smokestacks on the battlefield soon, and what's nice is that this is going to give us some bodies to fuel the smokestacks. I wish I had Tragic Slip earlier, jeez Louise. Or we could just do this and just go straight up for Gisa. It might be valuable to keep the Dark Ritual. We'll swing the Dark Confidant and pass turn. Okay, that's the reveal. This is the next card. Cool. So this is actually shaping up to be a really decent start. And maybe it was better that we kept Rankle, because I want to get both of these down. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't have enough to do both. Whereas if I had Plaguecrafter, I could have done both. But we really want smokestacks on the battlefield, I gotta tell you. I think that we'll probably roll with this because it's a major part of our plan. We don't have a good way to... Yeah. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. The way this is shaking out, we're just going to put Rankle down. 4. Which also means we need to get rid of one of these two creatures when we attack if we want to start this chain of events. And to be honest with you, the Dark Confidant feels a little bit more valuable than the Rankle. But we'll keep the Rankle spinning. So he'll come into play. It'll deal combat damage to someone. We'll swing with Gisa, and because we plan on getting rid of the Dark Confidant anyways, we'll swing it at another open player. Let's pretend that someone was open. Everyone sacrifices a creature. In this instance, we are going to play Pretensies and say that everyone had a creature to sacrifice. In my instance, I will get rid of the Dark Confidant, sadly. And each player discards a card. Choose any number. I don't know. Do we want people to discard cards here? Sure. We'll get rid of the Tragic Slip, and we'll also... each player loses a life and draws a card. Yeah. I need the draw, and then we'll lose the Dark Confidant. And let's go ahead and make those 3 tokens. In this instance, we'll use City's Blessing, and we'll use this to track the creatures that are under here. Sure, cool. This is going to happen on upkeep, mind you, again, but I just want to start tracking it now. Okay, cool. We didn't look through our deck, so we'll just do this. We get those creatures now. Very cool. And we are starting turn 4 with a Rankle, a Gisa, and a Smokestacks in hand that I really want to play out. So we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. 1, 2. And we could use Phyrexian Tower to kill a creature to do it, but let's just pretend that this was the way to go. And bearing in mind that we also have the Diabolic Intent to search up like a Bitter Blossom or get things rolling on Smokestacks, but we're in a good spot here. The game plan here, and it's funny that I wanted to illustrate Smokestacks and it worked out this way, but the thing we want to do now is to just protect Smokestacks. Really difficult in mono black, but we can protect it by doing mass discarding. There aren't that many ways for us to discard, and if we were sensing opposition from any player, the best thing to do would be to pick apart that person's hand with utilities that allow us to duress or something of that nature, and continuously make people discard with Rankle, right? This is the best utility for discard. So in a way, I'm glad I kept it, despite the fact that I was slower to start off the Smokestacks. This first stack pile, if you've never played with Smokestacks, these are both at the beginning of your upkeep triggers. So what you'll want to do is layer them as such. You'll do the bottom trigger and then you'll do the top trigger, right? So for you, not sacrifice anything but via soot counter, and then you'll put a soot counter. So for everyone else, they'll just have to sacrifice stuff first. So you can sort of skirt around that first trigger. But that will be on turn 5. And again, I'm not going to play this out. We'll play it through one more turn. We are in a good position to hopefully close this out. But the way this is going to shake out, we're going to attack here, attack here. We will make it so that everyone has to sacrifice a creature. Cool. Let's just say there's only 2 creatures on the battlefield at this point. We'll go up 2 for having done that. And we'll also make everyone discard a card. I like City of Traders, so I'll just discard the Swamp. Again, we need this form of protection to keep the Smokestacks going. Next turn. Ooh. Enters the battlefield. Each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Well, cool. In this instance, I think that's our discard card, because I don't think there are going to be that many creatures hitting the battlefield from turn to turn, but we'll layer the stacks. We'll attack, keep swinging. We'll go ahead and make everyone discard a card. And same story. We're not going to make anyone sacrifice a creature this go around. I will Diabolic Intent in this instance to get rid of one of these. And we should be trying to set up for... In this instance, because of the sheer amount of mana we have, we can actually successfully cast Razaketh with Dark Ritual. Am I right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. And Razaketh, and it makes total sense to me to just go for Razaketh. Because he's straight up 8. So, actually I have the Chrome Mox. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We don't even need to use Phyrexian Tower to sacrifice a creature. We actually have a lot of excess mana. But in this miraculous instance, we can actually leverage Razaketh, just hard cast, which is kind of cool. So shuffle up, pass. Everyone sacrifices a thing. Go to next turn. Again, this is just how this would roll. And you can sort of get the idea here. To close things out, provided this has all been kosher and no one's been able to stop us, we can leverage Razaketh to just set up a combo play and or make life even more hellish for everyone else. And in certain instances like this, like if we were able to just get everyone down, you would actually want, as was suggested earlier, like the Torment of Hailfire, all of those cards that just you pour mana into and just do the damage or do the thing, just to get the ball rolling on a general game plan, either making them forfeit and or getting the ball rolling on Smokestacks that much quicker. So with Smokestacks out, we're probably going to want to go for a Bitter Blossom if that's what we're trying to lean towards, as well as any other token generator like Ophiomancer, stuff like that. But yeah, this was a really good start. A little bit, I mean, how much can you do in mono black to accelerate outside of having the rituals and fast mana in hand? But this is a really good start. And I want to tune in with you guys. I noticed that the deck Bone Shard's too slow. Good point. Do you have Turgid in the deck, or does it take away? You could add Turgid, but I don't think it's meaningful. I think it's one or the other. I would probably just want to play Turgid over Gisa if that's what you want to do. But you could sort of see what we're prioritizing here, Jay, insofar as what I wanted to do with the deck, right? The one line of Reanimate play, and then obviously relying on Smokestacks. I've always wanted to make a Smokestacks list, and this one sort of meshed well with that. Another card that we can rock right now that makes total sense, that was a great suggestion earlier, is Contamination. So Raza could definitely get Contamination. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this one, guys. This is definitely not necessarily the route I saw Gisa going at first, but I really loved where it ended up. I think that Gisa's good. I think she's really good. And also let me know, as I mentioned off the beginning of this video in the show before the show, were there any audio issues? I'm trying to mend these as we go along to make sure that these live streams are perfect for you. Hopefully there weren't any in this one, and I'm going to play this back for myself later anyways. But yeah, I had fun doing this. And as I do with every video, I'd like to thank our YouTube members. Thank you guys for joining the channel here. Again, if you haven't reached out on Discord, be sure to do so I can get you on the Discord so you can play in our bi-weekly Brew Wars lives, as well as vote on our next cold brew. So guys, community members, if you're watching this, be sure to hang tight for a community poll for you guys for the next list that we brew on cold brew. But also, as I do with every video, I like to thank you guys, the viewers, and our Patreon community for helping to make all of this happen. We have a strong community of patrons that really get this show going. This is really a part-time job for me, and it's not lucrative enough, but you guys really help me get through the months. I can't stress that enough. I really appreciate your help over there for helping me generate all this content. It goes so much further and beyond you could imagine, your help there. So thank you so much, especially through these last few years. You guys are the best, and I am enjoying the heck out of these. So if you enjoy these, feel free to hit that like button. It helps a whole lot. If you don't generally hit like button on these videos, trust me, it actually does help. And of course, subscribing if you haven't subscribed yet. But thank you guys for tuning in every week for these cold brews. Again, I hope this was helpful. Take with this, run with it, do what you will. I think Gisa's got a pretty strong position as a Smokestacks commander, and I think her CMC is actually pretty favorable at 4. You can get the job done. Wouldn't braids be better? Sure. But sadly, that's not an option for us. Again, my name is Patrick Marlatt, and happy brewing, babies.